Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I'm a Western astrologer and twin flame channel. And this is a video about the Scorpio new moon that took place on November 20th at 1:40 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. This is going to be the twin flame divine counterpart soulmate collective update. So excited that we're coming to the tail end of this year. I can't believe it's coming so quickly. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm so ready. I'm over 2025. I was over it in February. So that the end is in sight has me like, whew, okay, I feel like we are finally getting to a place of completion with this year, which I'm very relieved about. For those of you who are on my private list, I want you to check your email from me. I dropped something in your inbox when I announced this new moon was up for you to listen to that I think if you listen to this video in particular, you're gonna want to take advantage of. So I strongly recommend you check that email. Um, and I want to just thank you for listening to the Lightworker Energy Update first and considering this a part two to that, because that update really contextualizes a lot of the energy that you will be seeing in this update, because this update, part of the picture. It gives you a very narrow scope. But if you want to know how to utilize the energy to your advantage in your connection, that update is going to ground it for you so that you are operating in power and not passivity. Okay. Um, oh, one other announcement. I mentioned that I really want to do podcasts, more podcasts in 2026. So if you or someone you know has a podcast and they're willing to let me share astrological themes, celebrity or political astrological breakdowns, email me. I'd love to build more community by sharing more of these insights with a wider audience. Okay. And all right, let's get into it. So we have our new moon in Scorpio conjunct Lilith and Mercury opposite Uranus, sextile Pluto, square or trine Ceres, trine Jupiter. Sorry, not trine Ceres. Yeah, it's a little bit trine Ceres, and then trine Neptune, Saturn there, and Nessus. If I were to put like all of this together in like a single sentence headline, what I have here is emotional intensity, secrets exposed, truth coming out, and the power to change being in your hands. Endings and closures coming from unignorable truth. That would be how I would summarize this for the collective, but it's way, 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 way more subtle than that. And I provided a lot of tools, well, not tools, but like insights on how to deal with this energy, especially if you either identify as divine masculine or love someone whom you are identifying as divine masculine. The Scorpio new moon is going to be a eye opener for you, for them, and for your own divine masculine energy. But let's start with Jupiter, with Juno. She's our divine feminine energy, and just break down what's going on for her. We have Juno in a sextile to Pallas and Chariklo in Aquarius. This is massive protection energy entering the divine feminine field at this time. There is a lot going on in the ethers to provide safety and haven for divine feminine energy with this aspect. Now, some of this is going to just be the people you're around and the interactions being so engaging that they're insulating you from greater collective breakdowns and breakthroughs. Additionally, you may feel the intercessional guidance of ancestors, spirit guides, God, the divine, angels, whomever you work with, to place you in locations that will be safe for you. Now, for reasons I'm not going to go into here, the last 2 weeks, my guidance was to stay indoors. Anytime I violated that, and it's really only been twice, let's just say there were physical consequences. I've been assured that this is temporary, but it's this type of subtle guidance that you may be receiving now and need to heed for your own well-being. You and your counterpart are always being guided. So I want to remind you that they're going to be okay. If you have any anxiety about their well-being during this time, they too have divine feminine energy. Spirit will always reroute or break down lessons as we need to make sure we're moving forward on our path. We live in a very benevolent universe, and we all have both masculine and feminine divinic energy available to us. And so this protective energy covers all counterparts. We also see a square to Nessus and Saturn and Neptune, all here in Pisces, to Juno. This is the fingers to the flame. Make sure you get it and don't miss it course correction. You may have felt intense pressure to get on with anything that needs correction or realignment and integrity in your life at this time. Saturn is pushing us to get it done. Nessus is fueling that push with a sense of obsession, like it's almost haunting you. So whatever you felt pressure to get on with, now's the time to get on with it, especially when it comes to Sagittarian and Scorpionic things. Things like reproductive health, money, closures and endings, dealing with painful emotions or trauma, freedom and truth, travel, especially overseas, higher education, writing. This is the time to move on the things that you've been putting off. Okay. We also see a trine to Juno from Chiron and Eris and Aries. This energy is also in the divine masculine energy fields from a squaring position. So both counterparts are going to be dealing with Chiron and Aries, but in very different ways, regardless of what their personal blend of masculine and feminine is. This is where the divine feminine energy may feel like, okay, I'm ready to get out of victim mode in the connection and in my life. Whatever story I've been telling about what's not working or why it's been challenging or why I don't fit into the world or the job market or the connection the way I want to, I now see where the current unfoldments are asking me to take the way I'm showing up to the next highest level and allow life, including my counterpart, to meet me there. In the trine formation, we have a lot of mastery in the experience of these two energies that can feel like a lack of belonging and victimhood initially. So initially, you may have the sense of, oh, like a little sting where you recognize lack of belonging, victimhood. We recognize it, and because it's the trine, it's much easier to move into action. Don't worry, we're going to go back to victimhood again shortly. But for now, enjoy the recognition. Oh, I'm ready to move, and act on the clarity about where you're ready to evolve, the way you interact with the world. The headline for this aspect is, if you don't like where you are, change it. You don't have to stay there. I want to speak to the fact that we also see a shaman's asteroid here in Libra, sextile to her. Since she has been in the sign of truth, faith, hope, and optimism, clarity, decision making since the beginning of October. Since she has been here, I know for those of you who run high divine feminine energy, there have been a lot of light bulbs about the way you're showing up in the connection, the way the connection is currently structured, and changes that you're ready to make within it. Here, with the shaman's asteroid speaking to Juno, in addition to all these other energies, this is opening up a lot of, okay, learn that lesson in partnership, in relationship, already ready to step into the next thing. And so, as this shows itself to you, as Juno prepares to move, continues to move through Sagittarius, one thing I heard of somebody say recently, it's important to remember that people can change, especially if you're changing, and to allow people space to change, allow them room to do that, and not space like, oh, I'm going to give you your space by not calling you and ignoring you. What I mean is space in your brain and heart to not constantly see people as their most wounded version, their most labeled self. One thing that my spiritual mentor called me out on earlier this year, she really took a look at some of my repeating thought patterns about people in my world. And she said to me, she pulled me aside one day in session and she said to me, Kay, you habitually expect to be disappointed by, let's just say, X group of people. And given what you now know about the way faith works, about the way you are governing your reality, and people can only show up in alignment with your frequency, it's something for you to consider that perhaps if you'd like to have a different experience with X group of people, you may need to change your perspective that they can be different at all. I was like, dang, you right. Called me all the way out. And I was so grateful for it because it was the kind of like light bulb and watershed moment that reminded me of how powerful perspective is. We've also, of course, seen this in the world of particle physics with the observer effect, that a particle observed performs differently according to being observed in the first place, that particles not observed don't perform in the same way observed particles do. So the fact that you're even looking at someone as wounded or as, having some sort of problematic attachment style or as traumatized or as fill in the blank with your label, right? Having space for them to change is like the ultimate divine feminine gift because in resting in your own divine neutrality and divine creativity, it gives the other person the freedom and the permission to become whole while being connected to you, as opposed to the only way they can connect with you. Again, this is about creatorship, not about healing, right? The opposite is that the only way they can connect with you, if you see them as wounded, is from the wound. So I want to leave that here with you all as she transits here. She's midway through the sign of truth and clarity and decision making, and she's speaking to the the asteroid that deals with lessons learned from the sign of partnership. Wanted to just share that little tidbit with you in case any of the rest of you are also like, oh, yeah, okay. Maybe there's a little resonance there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. You let me know in the comments. Overall, before I transition into divine masculine energy fields, I want to sum this up by saying 2025 has been an activation heavy year for divine counterparts. More than any year I've worked with in this timeline with you all since its inception. 2025 has seen the new and full moons have, at least since I've been doing it, unprecedented level of communication with one or both divine counterparts every single time, except for maybe like once or twice. So if you're new here, I'm going to suggest, if you haven't already, but you listen, and if you haven't already, but you listen to every update, I strongly recommend that you make a timeline of events that happened between you and your counterpart this year. Even if it was just shifts in the energetic connection because you're in no communication, then I'm going to invite you to go back and listen to the lunar updates closest to those dates to track why what happened happened. Because one of the things I give you every single report is here's the divine purpose of this energy. Here's where we're headed. If you're union focused, here's how you can use this. Here's what's unfolding. Go back and listen based to just the updates that speak to your specific timeline of changes. And then from there, I'm going to invite you at this new moon to consider what has my perspective and vantage point about myself, the connection, and the counterpart been? Has it fit into my story? And am I ready to change my story? Okay. You can utilize these final two new moons. This one, we have a new moon in Sagittarius. We have a new moon in Capricorn, which I think will be the very start of 2026. You can use these new moons to facilitate a new direction. Instead of waiting for these updates and thinking, okay, well, what's going to happen next? You can get into creator mode. You can get into divine director mode here. And I really want to encourage those of you who feel like, yeah, I really want union in the third dimension in the land of the living. I don't want this to just be some kind of cosmic lesson for me. To start to make that shift in your consciousness when it comes to not only the way you view yourself and whatever labels you put on yourself, but also your counterpart and whatever labels you attach to them. It's so important that you see them as whole, as divine, as God incarnate, as capable, as complete, and not as wounded, broken, insecurely attached, addicts, traumatized. Like it's important that because we have so much divine energy, utilize that energy to see people in their highest light so that they have room to become that incarnate. Okay. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, y'all. If you liked it, hit that like button for me. Jupiter and Cancer, let's get into the divine masculine energy. All right, so, and also send it to somebody, right? Like don't gatekeep the intel. If you know somebody who needs to hear that, pass it on. Let's get into Jupiter and Cancer. Our divine masculine energy is trine the new moon in Scorpio. And that new moon is speaking to both Lilith and Mercury. Like I said, this is creating an activation for the divine masculine energy. Just about every new and full moon this year, it's been an activation for one or the other, feminine or masculine. This time it happens to be divine masculine. Everything I said about this new moon is going to be doubly intense and true in the divine masculine energetic field. So it's going to be important to self-attune with this energy because the desire to check out, whether it's with substances or behaviors, will be in the mix with Neptune retrograde in Pisces, also speaking to this new moon and also speaking to Jupiter. The urge to cope with the emotional intensity or the feelings that are bubbling below the surface and coming forward by either ignoring them or dampening them and missing their signals and wisdom is going to be so high and so automatic here. So if you know you have, let's just say, a tendency, this is a great opportunity to slow down, tune in, go to your safe place, and let yourself feel. The messages coming in with Mercury retrograde, also talking to Jupiter, will be life-changing in the best of ways. I love this energy. And if all else fails, some emotional regulation is just going to go a long way to start the integration process of the subconscious, psychic, and emotional material trying to surface through this new moon. Okay. We have a trine to Nessus here for Jupiter. And that is also speaking to Neptune and Saturn for Jupiter. So, this is a push for spiritual evolution in the best of ways. Saturn wants integrity. Nessus won't leave us alone until we step into it. And Neptune, speaking to Jupiter, wants us to spiritually evolve. Now, all three of those are retrograde. That can bring in a little bit more, and including Jupiter. Jupiter is also retrograde. This can bring in a more pensive, reflective, internal frequency into our divine masculine energy fields. And I like this for us because ultimately, this is giving us that opportunity for wholeness that I was just talking about within, the wholeness that we want to see other people in. This is actually going to give us a chance to experience that within ourselves, because it's really hard to give something to someone that we don't have, we've never walked through, we've never experienced for ourselves. We don't know the ins and outs, the highs and lows of what that takes. So this is our opportunity to really step into that for ourselves. Okay. This configuration can cause us, as I mentioned, to completely check out. They are classically associated with addiction and the spiritual and emotional bypass, but the inputs of Saturn and Nessus are working overtime to make sure that this doesn't happen between Neptune and Jupiter. So that old Cherokee adage about the two wolves applies here. Which wolf are you going to feed? Hopefully, you know that adage. If not, you can Google it, look it up. Somebody who's really good with memory is probably going to drop it in the comments because I feel pretty sure I might misquote it at the present. But ultimately, this is going to be about choice as emotions and intuitive and psychic information is subconscious information is going to run high, crack through the surface. The veil is going to be thin. What you do with that is going to be a choice. We see an opposition to Pluto for Jupiter. It is by far my favorite thing about this for our divine masculine energy, and it's calling in a closing of an emotional patterning with people in groups, specifically friendships and colleagues. That's the Aquarian piece. families, that's the Cancer piece, and places where the power dynamics have not been honoring to us or providing us with right use of power. Now, I've said it in multiple lunar updates. It's asking us where we've been doing too much to step back, where we've been doing too little to step up, all while providing an ego death where our ego has been caught up in what we do and who we can be to other people, whether that's somebody's hero or somebody's victim. These stories are starting to devolve now, to evolve, to devolve, dissipate, crumble. I think you get what I'm trying to say. Now, this may be uncomfortable and come with some pretty rude awakenings about where others have played victim in our lives and we've enabled it, or we've played victim and others have allowed it. And we'll get to that in a minute with the square to Chiron and Eris and Aries. But for now, suffice it to say, Pluto is about to get us sorted. Oh my gosh. And the other thing I love about this energy is it's great for productivity. So if you've got anything you've been putting off, this is going to cause you to feel a confidence that you can do it, need to do it now, and can't rest until it gets done. Now, I want to speak to where this is really going to be helpful before I move on, because I know some people's escapism is workaholism. There are some of you who early on in the year, because of Juno's retrograde through Scorpio, felt a sense of depression, ran into a health challenge, and may have just been emotionally or spiritually in the cocoon for a long period of time this year, unable to execute. As we wrap up this year with Pluto opposite Jupiter, our divine masculine energy revs up to be able to foster completing the year strong. And so this is balance. If you needed to rest in the early part of the year and now you need to push, fine. That's not the same thing as using work to escape dealing with this, sort of intense period of time. Where this becomes a problem is in the places that I mentioned just before that, right? Where it's like, no, I just, in order to escape holiday loneliness, I just like to work, or I just, don't want to, or I'm going to go around and help everybody and be everybody's hero. This is where you may find, mm, universe has some things to say about that, needing to get source validation through heroship. This is where you may find the universe wants you to be in a place where you're empowering others, not enabling them. Okay, I think I said that well. I tried. Hopefully it clarified some things. So second to lastly, we've got a series here also, and part of that little trine configuration with Neptune, Saturn, and Nessus. Ceres is in the mix there, also speaking to Jupiter. I'm loving this as well. While we have the opposition to Pluto, to Jupiter, that Ceres is also speaking to Jupiter in trine, because anytime we have both Pluto and Ceres acting on a planetary position, they agree on one thing. An ending is at hand. And the ending for our divine masculine energies has been going on for a while. And specifically, it has to do with toxic family dynamics and issues with mothers and matrilineal lines in particular. There's a huge shift here in our divine masculine fields. It's all about releasing so many unhealthy dynamics and patterns and genetic programming and patterning and inheritances from the matrilineal lines that have not served. Now, I don't want you to feel picked on if you are a mother or in a mothering role. Listen, The same clean out unfolded for the patrilineal lines in 2020. And we saw what 2020 was like. It's just the matrilineal lineage turn. Okay. So, um, some of this has been deeply spiritual, like you've been doing work in spirit with a mother who's crossed over. Some of this has been with living mothers and resetting relationship dynamics. Some of you are doing this in therapy, right? Some of this has been with women in your life who are authority figures, like coaches or team leaders or mentors at work, where there have been dynamics that undermine your divine masculine energy or caused emotional compromise. This is where you're going to feel compelled to put an end to it. And again, gentle reminder, whether you identify as male or female, we are all running both energies in our systems and are getting access to this activation on the move in our lives. So be on the lookout for it. Some of this may also have a lot to do with not specifically mothers, but a relationship to emotions that's just not working. Whether it's emotional repression or hyper emotional indulgence, um, spiritual bypassing of the emotions, any sort of extreme relationship to emotions, whether it's cutting them off or only living in them, no balance. This Jupiter transit through Cancer, the sign that deals with our emotions, is going to bring that into correctional focus, given these planetary energies, and in particular, where it comes to love, ability to receive love, trust love, choose love, feel love. These sorts of shifts are part of the unfoldment. And so if your heart has been feeling heavy or conflicted or triggered, this is the opportunity to turn toward those emotions and just begin to gently sit with what's here. What am I feeling? And is it part of a greater pattern that I'm maybe ready to look at and change for myself? Okay. All right. Chiron and Eris in Aries. Let's talk about our friends here because they not leaving no time soon. Notice how both divine counterparts are in this conversation, but not in conversation. The Juno and Jupiter aren't talking to one another. Instead, they're both talking to Chiron and Eris. Ay, ay, ay. Way to close the year. Okay. This is a massive push to relieve each divine counterpart of the ego structures that complicate union energies, but in very different ways. Now, for some, this is going to be things like perhaps like over identification with the twin flame idea, the soulmate idea. For others, this is going to be feeling wounded and victimized by the connection to the point of feeling like I can only breathe if I abandon it. I can only come into wholeness if I cut the other person off. And that wholeness will be that sort of thing. But ultimately, this is a call to come home to wholeness and release false identities, false narratives about self and other, but starting really with self. Um, that wholeness in self, and we're going to get even more into that as Saturn and Neptune come back into Aries next year. We're especially in the summer of next year when Jupiter jumps into Leo, we're really going to get into it. But ultimately, this is, and for those of you in this, that's July, for those of you in the southern hemisphere. This call to come into wholeness is going to be the platform for union that's not attached to or governed by the identification and identity markers that may currently be a hangup for you too, like political party, twin flame, insert religion or race here. There's a work going on in the templates for those who are love initiated to release these identifications and come home to self over affiliation and see others as a self before seeing them as their affiliations, honoring needs and humanity while recognizing we live in a world that doesn't know how to do that, even when it pays lip service to it. So we're growing through it first, those who are love initiated. Now, I want to be clear. This is not about living in the we're all the same and I don't see color or gender erasure fantasy. This is about honoring the diversity within and without, the lived experience it comes with as a means of honoring and loving the person in front of you, whether that's in the mirror or your counterpart in the way that they need to be and want to be loved. Now, this process may feel like stimulation, and that's a very neutral word to say triggering AF when it comes to themes regarding identity from the world or from your counterpart. It may be very stimulating before there's enough release and neutrality for any sort of coming together. With the Neptune and Saturn final dip back into Pisces here that's happening right now, there is a lot of subconscious material related to these themes that will be surfacing for processing and integration and transformation before the end of the year, both for the collective, but also for our divine masculine fields. I cannot overemphasize how important it is to let people change. There's a lot of identity crisis moving through our collective divine masculine energy fields in present time. Who am I now? What's my true north? What's real for me? Why am I here? Is this patterning I've been living true for me? Am I on the right path, doing the right things? So if you're feeling this sort of existential questioning or watching people go through that, know that it's in the atmosphere. This clean out of the subconscious lasts through January and February of next year. And the Eris Chiron thing in Aries that's got everyone sensitive and in their feels about who they are and where they belong, that lasts nearly all of 2026 with a brief break in the June, July-ish timeframe of next year. So, gentle, gentle, slowly, slowly. Be kind to yourself. Release expectation so you can live in some truth, live in some love, live in some allowing. Yeah. Okay. That's what I got. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me. It is truly an honor to be able to share these messages with you. If you're not on the private list, I strongly recommend you sign up. Link to do that is below this video. I did have something special I sent to private listers only. I might send a reminder and you might get it if you're on that list. So, link to do that is below the video. Thank you all for, other than that, liking, listening, subscribing, and watching an ad for 30 seconds, sharing this with somebody who needs it to help them understand what's going on for them personally. I really appreciate the way you all support the work. It goes such a long way. I want to be honest. I have no idea what's going on with YouTube ads whatsoever. I do my best to make them work in a way that makes the content digestible, but honestly, even if I put an ad in a particular place that's not disruptive, I have noticed YouTube does what the F it wants the way it wants, even if I ask it to do other things. So the fact that you watch and support this work in any way, OMG, I'm so grateful and honored that I get to be on this journey with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys, and I will see you at the next lunar update. Take great care and bye for now.